authorities investigating after an ICE agent shot and killed an undocumented man near Chicago Friday. The Department of Homeland Security says an agent was trying to arrest the man when he drove his car into a group of ICE agents. The agent said he feared for his life, drew his gun, and opened fire. Protesters gathered shortly after to sound off against the shooting. And joining me now to discuss is former Chief of Staff for Immigration and Customs Enforcement under President Biden, Jason Hauser. Thanks for being here today. All right, so as we take a look at these dramatic developments, I just want to get your thoughts on what you think so far.
Thank you for having me. I mean, what we saw in Chicago was a tragedy. It was a tragedy for both the officer that was injured, for the individual that was killed. What we need to do is, as you mentioned, there's going to be an investigation into the use of force, and ICE has strong use of force policies and directions, and that'll sort of bear out. But what we overall see here is a continuation where in a tactical sense, on the ground, there's beginning to have this fear is beginning to build in communities in Chicago. And that is because there's not a clear and concise and direct sort of policy or position that the administration is taking of how they're going to fix our immigration system. What we're beginning to see is these surges of just not ICE officers, but federal law enforcement broadly, sort of just focusing on these sort of, street checkpoints and car checkpoints and sort of large scale sweeps of these communities in these sanctuary cities. What we really need is a focus on the public safety, national security threats in this country, as we saw with the killing of Charlie Kirk, what we've seen in Minnesota and other states. Yeah. Federal law enforcement overall is taking their eye off the ball, and we need to get back to focusing on national security and public safety threats.
Yeah, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker took to X after the incident, saying this, quote, "The people of Illinois deserve a full factual accounting of what has happened today to ensure transparency and accountability." The day that it happened, Governor Pritzker hasn't been shy about making his issues with Trump's policies known before. So is the example he's setting making it harder for agents to do their jobs? How do you see that?
There's a balance here. And as a former Biden administration and President Obama administration official, both at CBP and ICE, we need state and local law enforcement to support federal law enforcement broadly. We'd also need them to support immigration and customs enforcement when there's national security and public safety threats, individuals that want to hurt our communities. If there's someone within a state and local custody that has a criminal conviction, is a violent offender, they need to work with ICE. What we don't need is large-scale sort of political theater operations that just build fear in our communities. There's 1.5 million people that have final orders of removal within the immigration system. And it's ICE's job is to humanely and justly remove those individuals from this country if they do not have a legal status. But what we have here is this sort of political theater of this, the sort of on the street, sort of driving fear into communities and some sort of deterrence. That isn't helpful. And quite frankly, what we need to do is find common ground from both state and local law enforcement officials. ICE needs to find its balance, focus on the real threats to our communities, and we need a system. We need the administration to stop only looking at immigration through the lens of sort of this community enforcement model. Because quite frankly, they've turned almost doubled the amount of federal law enforcement working on immigration enforcement, but the amount of removals has not went up. Of course, we're seeing more arrests, but in the aggregate, are we more safe from the sort of turning the entire lens of federal law enforcement on domestic immigration enforcement? And that needs to be questioned.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.